pray that we will have our eyes opened so we can see you, so we will listen, and so we will get up unafraid to follow. We pray these things. Pray that you will speak to us through the words of my mouth and through the prayers of all of our hearts. O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So you would think that if you were a disciple, one of those original disciples, and you got to follow Jesus around every single day, that you would just be on a cloud the whole time, that it would just be elation and constant stimulation and growth and nourishment and challenge. But I think that it probably had some mundane days too, where maybe they didn't quite know where they were going, maybe things blended in one after the other. You can only see so many healings, right? So many miracles. I think that probably there was a little bit of monotony that settled in from time to time. There were some dark days too. And then there were some high points. There were some days, there were mountaintop experiences. And that's what we have here this morning, quite literally, a mountaintop experience, where three disciples get to go with Jesus, and they have this story to tell that is unlike any that they've had before. Of course, at the end of it, Jesus says, don't tell anyone this story yet. There will come a day when you can tell people, but don't tell them yet. I always wonder, why does Jesus want to keep the lid on things, right? And every time I come to that, it says something different to me. This time when I read it, it felt like this is too big a story to just share with words. This needs to sit in you for a while and change you a little bit. And there will be a time when you can share it, but for now, it's too holy to just use common words to tell. So they have this experience where they're journeying through with Jesus, and in very real ways. They're traveling around the countryside, and they're eventually going to Jerusalem. And we will get there during Holy Week when they make it to Jerusalem. But there's also a figurative journey as well, where Jesus is taking this motley crew of tax collectors and fishermen and ordinary people, and he is transforming them into the body of Christ, to his disciples, to these children of God who are going to change the world. So this is the journey that they are on, and in the middle of this journey, Jesus invites these three to go up to the mountain. And so they go up to the mountain, and when they get to the peak, they have this experience where suddenly Jesus is glowing, and his clothes are this otherworldly white, and there is this light emanating from him. And before they know it, there is Moses and Elijah who appear on the scene, and the three of them are talking. Now, for us, modern-day Christians, we always have to go back and remind ourselves, who are Moses and Elijah again, and why are these two guys suddenly here? Moses, you'll remember, he's the one who leads God's people out of slavery. He's the leader that God chooses to save the people. And then God gives Moses the law, the 10 Commandments, and all that follows. And so Moses is seen as kind of a savior figure, but also the one who receives the law, the one that gives them God's instructions for how they are to live as the people of God. They're supposed to be different. Their lives have been set apart for something holy, and so they have to live in a holy way. So that's Moses. He's the receiver of the law. And then we have Elijah. Now, Elijah was a prophet, and he was the first main prophet for the people of Israel. And a prophet is someone who speaks God's word to the people in real time. So Moses is kind of the foundation of God's people, and the prophet is the one who continued to shape them through God's word as they go, as they grow, and as they journey on. So we have these two figures, the one who represents the foundation and the law, and the one who represents God's ongoing word to the people. And then we have Jesus. And of course, we know who Jesus is, right? Jesus is God's own self, the divine in human flesh. That's who Jesus is. He's God's presence right there on the mountaintop. So wow, what an experience to have. This is a literal mountaintop experience where everything that you would want as a person of faith is now happening right in front of you. All of God's history, all of God's teaching, all of God's desire for God's people are now right there in front of you. And they are talking to each other. Wouldn't you love to hear what they were saying? What are they talking about? What's that conversation like? Peter was there. He could listen to it. He could tell us what they were talking about, except, Peter didn't quite do that, did he? Peter is so exuberant. He always wants to be part of what's going on that sometimes he misses what's going on. So instead of just listening, Peter has this understanding that, wow, I'm experiencing something holy and amazing that no one else will have experienced before. I want to stay here. This is the good stuff. Let's just keep this going. Let's keep making sure that this is going to happen. So he goes to Jesus and he says, Lord, it's so good for us to be here. Let's stay a good long time. Shall we? We'll put down roots. Don't worry. I know it's going to get cold. We'll build shelters. We can just camp out here. This is what it's all about. We're going to stay here. Well, I can understand Peter. I get that desire to just want to live in that moment. Because that's what it's all about, right? To be in God's presence, to be completely in God's presence and have everything kind of wrapped up. There's a nice neat bow over the whole thing. And Peter wants to stay there and be a part of it. You know, my life is a pastor. And so my job is to have discussions with people to help them with their life of faith. 90% of the conversations I have feel kind of mundane. They feel like we're chit-chatting about things that are important, maybe some things that aren't so important. When I go on visits or when I have conversations with people here in the church or even around town, a lot of it is just busy work that's important, but still it's busy work. And then every once in a while, at the tail end of a conversation, I will go down a little bunny trail and suddenly we will have a moment where something real is shared. Something deep where someone has maybe shared something about themselves or about the core of who they are, about what they value. Or maybe they ask me a question and I'm able to share. And we have this moment where we are real with each other. And I always am like Peter. I recognize it just 1 second after it happened, and I want to say that again. Say that. What did you say? Let's say that again. Can we talk about that more? Did you hear what just happened? Did you hear what you said? Did you hear what I said? Let's just build a tent. We'll stay here forever in this beautiful moment, right? And that's not what that moment is for. That moment is not for me to get my arms around and control and hold on to and say, this is it. We're done. We're going to stay right here in this moment. Peter wants to control things. He wants to be in charge. He sees God in front of him. He loves it. He wants to hang on to it. How does that go? It does not go well for him. When he tries to control the moment is gone. The moment is gone. Instead, this big cloud descends upon the mountain. And there's this voice that speaks out of the cloud. This is my son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. Now, some of that's going to sound familiar to us, because that's what happened when Jesus was baptized. The voice of God said the same thing. This is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. It's Jesus' identity. It's who he is. And that's repeated now, so that all the disciples, at least the 3 on the mountain, get to hear this is who Jesus is. But then there's one more part at the end, a direct command to Peter and the disciples. Listen to him. Listen to him. He was having this great conversation with Moses and Elijah. You should have listened. Listen to him now. It's not enough just to receive these moments, these gifts from God. We have to receive them, but we also have to let them in. We have to listen and let them change us. Peter wouldn't have been changed if they just built all these homes and stayed there. The point is not to stay in that moment. The point is to let that moment into you and let it change you so that when you go down the mountain, you're different. Listen to him. A number of years ago, I was part of this really great group of young clergy, and it was an ongoing continuing education project where we got together for 6 separate weeks over the course of 2 years. And every time we got together, there was a special topic, like preaching or worship, but one of our weeks was about evangelism. And I did not want to go, because evangelism is not my cup of tea. Evangelism to me brought images of when I was in college, and a nearby church brought church folks to our college campus every Monday, and they brought bullhorns, and they just yelled at us on the quad as we went between classes. did not do anything for the Christian church at all. Or I remember this one man when I was studying as a religious studies major in college, and so I always had my Bible open. And you know me, I like coffee, so I do all my studying at the coffee shops. And somehow that open Bible he saw as an invitation to just come up and sit down at my table and just preach to me for way too long. I should not have let him do that. But he would just rattle off Bible verses. And that is not what I wanted to do. I didn't want anything to do with evangelism, because that's what it was to me. But I went to this week anyway, and these two clergy women were leading our discussion. And after the first session, I forgot I wasn't supposed to like this stuff. And then by the end of the week, I thought, that is what I want my life to be about. Evangelism is faith sharing. That doesn't mean getting a bullhorn and yelling at people about how they are wrong. It means having this conversation where you share how God has moved in your life and what God has done for you, and you listen to what God is doing in the other person's life. And there's a moment where you meet in this open and honest place. Well, my goodness, that's what it's all about. That's what my life had been. That's how I'd come this far, is because people had taken time to listen to me and to know me. And I wanted to do that with other people and foster these kinds of conversations. So it really changed my thinking about what evangelism is. And these two pastors one of them shared a story about someone in her church. Because she said, here's the problem with evangelism. You can't share a story unless you know you have a story. And our churches are full of people who don't think they have a story about an experience with God. Because when we read the Bible for what it looks like to have an experience with God, there's lightning, and there's thunder, and there's clouds, and there's bright lights, and it's all very dramatic. And our lives aren't like that. We're ordinary people. So she told a story of a person in her church she went to visit. I think I've told this story before. It's a quiet story. There's nothing loud and flashy about it, but it touched me. There was this woman in her church who was an older woman, and she'd never been able to have children. And she wanted to, but that's just not the way her life worked out. Instead, she taught third grade. And she taught third grade for decades, for generations. And so this pastor was getting to know her, and she went to her house at Christmas time. And her mantle was completely full of Christmas cards. They were falling off. And she said, wow, you must have a big family. And the lady said, no, those are all my students. Her students would send her Christmas cards every year. And so they continued their visit, and her phone kept ringing. People kept calling, and she kept answering the phone. And they said, well, is that more family checking in? The pastor said, and she said, no, those are my students. It's Christmas time, and they all check in on me. And as she got to know this lady more and more, she realized she didn't feel like she had a story of God. And this pastor finally shared with her, I think that you are living a resurrection story. Because you have lived through the death of a dream, an identity, something you wanted to be, and it didn't happen. And in the midst of that loss, look at the new life that came to be. Look at the ways that you were able to touch not just one or two children, but generations and whole classrooms of children who you've moved so much that they continue to count you as their own, time and time again, every year. That's a resurrection story. It doesn't happen on a mountaintop with thunder and lightning. It happens in the course of an ordinary life that's made extraordinary by God being present with you in quiet ways. We have to listen. We have to listen to the stories that we are living, that those people around us are living, because that is where God changes us. God saves us from a loss, from a death, from a sadness, and brings us to new life. And it's the listening to that that will change us. So Peter and the disciples hear this voice, listen to him. And how do they respond? In complete fear. They hit the ground. They are so afraid of this voice coming to them from the cloud. And I wonder, why are they afraid? What is it about the voice that makes them afraid? That, seeing Jesus with this bright shining light around him, talking to Moses and Elijah, didn't make them afraid. Why was that comfortable and hearing the voice so frightening? Was it because they were afraid of God? I mean, that's possible. When God shows up, we suddenly realize how small we are and how ungodlike we are, and that might make them afraid. But God was present with them them before the voice, I wonder if it's because the voice was so personal. The voice talked just to them, and they couldn't get around it. They couldn't control that. It was this voice of God saying, I have a task for you to do. You must listen. And so they hit the ground afraid. But that's not the end of the story. That's not the end of the story. Jesus walks over to them and touches them and says, get up and don't be afraid. Get up and don't be afraid. I've read this story 1,000 times. I've never heard that phrase before. Get up and don't be afraid. You know, we read this story at the beginning of every Lent, and I always wonder why. It just comes out of nowhere. We pluck it down there at the beginning. Why are we reading this story now? We call it the Transfiguration because Jesus is transfigured. He goes up on the mountain looking like an ordinary person, and then he has this moment where he is changed, and he is bright, and he has a vision of God. And the disciples see this, and so they see that he is different. Except not really, right? Because at the end of the story, when Peter lifts up his head, Moses and Elijah are gone, and Jesus looks normal again. So Jesus wasn't changed. He was the Son of God before he went up the mountain. He's the Son of God afterward. Jesus didn't change. Who really changed in this story? It was Peter and the disciples. They were transformed. They suddenly had this new understanding of what it means to receive an experience of God and to listen to it, to let it in and let it change you. And maybe that's why they were so afraid, is because they were in the process of being changed and transformed. Nelson Mandela quoted an author many, many years ago, and so he always gets credit for this quote, but it was really an author named Marianne Williamson. I'm paraphrasing here, but she said something like, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We are so capable of living the way God wants us to. And the disciples were scared because they knew that God was calling them to live like Jesus, to love like Jesus, to give themselves in service and in selfless love, to see God's own child and the outcast and the marginalized and the stranger and the poor. And that's a scary thing to do, to follow God, to love that way. And so they were afraid. But Jesus does not leave them in fear. He says, get up and don't be afraid. We are going to embark on this season of Lent. And it's a tough season, friends. It's intense. It's not the bright, warm, shiny Christmas season where we can just kind of immerse ourselves in the culture around us. This is a difficult season for Christians because we're supposed to walk through these tough times, these tough ideas. We end up in Holy Week, where we have to consider the dark side of the human spirit, where we have to remember the story where God offers us God's own self full of love, and what do people do? We respond with violence, with anger, and with refusal. That's a tough story to walk through, but it's supposed to change us as we do. And then we arrive at Easter, which is God's glorious triumph. Get up and don't be afraid. I'm going to share one more picture with you. I told you last week, maybe it's February. It's just gray, I'm tired. And I was sharing a conversation with a friend this week. We were texting each other. And I said, could you just keep me in your prayers? This is tough. And we need to, every day, just get up, ready to be forces for good. And she sent me this picture. Now this picture, this little girl is Ruby Bridges. And in 1960, she desegregated her elementary school in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's her mom walking beside her. She sent me this picture and she said, Mare, we can do hard things. Look at what this girl did. Walking with signs of anger and meanness and fear all around her. And she walks forward because she's going to get an education. And she's going to be the person that God made her to be. And it was like Jesus was saying, get up and don't be afraid. See what we can do. See what we can do. We have an experience of God just waiting for us in front of us to receive. Our job is to listen to it and let it change us. And then to get up and don't be afraid. Let's follow Jesus and continue on our journey. God.